A production sharing agreement, or PSA, is a contract between a government and an oil company, or sometimes a group of companies. It grants the company the right to explore for, produce and sell oil and gas in a specified region. PSAs are particularly common in developing countries or nations with limited technical resources for oil and gas development. They provide a balanced structure where the government can maximize revenue without bearing the initial financial risks. PSAs are structured to ensure both parties benefit. The government retains ownership of its resources and receives a portion of the profits. The company invests its own funds to explore and, if successful, extract oil or gas and share profits while covering its costs. Key components of a PSA. Ownership and control of resources. Under most PSAs, the government retains ownership of the natural resources. This allows the government to maintain sovereignty over its oil and gas assets, meaning that even though the company is producing the oil, it doesn't technically own it. The government grants the company the rights to explore, develop and produce the oil and gas, but does not give up control over the reserves themselves. The PSA outlines the terms of this access and defines how much production will go to each party. Exploration and development rights. The government designates a specific geographic area for the company to explore, often called a block or concession. The PSA sets a timeline for each stage: exploration, development and production. During the exploration phase, the company performs seismic surveys, drilling and other technical analyses to find commercially viable oil and gas reserves. If exploration is unsuccessful, the company may exit the PSA, typically after notifying the government and fulfilling minimum commitments. If oil or gas is found, the company moves to the development and production phase, which involves constructing facilities, wells and pipelines needed for long-term production. Risk and cost bearing. The company or contractor assumes the financial risk. It covers all exploration, development and operating costs out of its own budget. If oil or gas is not discovered in sufficient quantities, the company must absorb the losses. This risk-bearing approach is favorable for governments which don't invest upfront and avoid direct financial exposure. Cost recovery. Once oil or gas production begins, the company is allowed to recoup its costs. This is usually taken from a portion of the production, known as cost oil or cost gas. The PSA defines what qualifies as recoverable costs, like exploration expenses, equipment, drilling, and operating costs. Cost recovery is typically capped as a percentage of the total production to prevent the company from taking too large a share early in the production cycle. Profit oil gas. After the company has recovered its costs, the remaining production, known as profit oil or profit gas, is shared between the government and the company based on a pre-negotiated formula. The profit split varies by country and often includes progressive sharing terms, meaning the government's share increases as production levels rise. This tiered structure helps ensure that both the company and the government benefit if the project proves highly successful. The government usually aims for a high government take, which is the total share of revenue it receives from the project, including profit oil, taxes and royalties. The PSA might include a sliding scale for profit sharing, where the government's portion increases based on factors like production volume or profitability. This structure protects the government's interest and ensures a significant return if production scales up. Additional payments, such as royalties and taxes, are also a crucial part of PSAs. In addition to profit sharing, PSAs may require the company to pay royalties on the oil or gas produced. Now, royalties are often a percentage of production value and are paid from the start, regardless of cost recovery. And then we have taxes. Some PSAs also impose additional taxes on company profits, although tax obligations vary based on the country's laws and the PSA's specific terms. Let's talk about termination and duration. PSAs have a defined term, often split into the exploration, development, and production phases. If the company does not meet exploration or development milestones within the agreed timeframe, the government may terminate the agreement. A PSA might include renewal options for extending the contract, but these are often conditional on government approval and compliance with the original terms. At the end of the PSA, all facilities, data, and equipment might revert to the government, ensuring it retains the benefits of any infrastructure or technical information acquired during the contract. Local content and environmental requirements. Many PSAs include clauses requiring the company to support local development through hiring local staff, training programs, or purchasing local goods and services. Environmental clauses often require the company to follow strict practices to minimize environmental damage, ensuring that oil and gas production adheres to international environmental standards. Example of a PSA in action. Imagine country X signs a PSA with company Y to explore and produce oil in a designated block. Initial investment: company Y invests $100 million in exploration activities. If no oil is found, company Y bears the loss. Cost recovery: company Y discovers oil and starts production. For each barrel produced, company Y takes a portion, say 40%, to recover its initial $100 million investment. Profit sharing. After cost recovery, the remaining oil production is divided. Suppose the profit split is 70% for country X and 30% for company Y. Country X enjoys a larger share, reflecting its ownership rights and incentivizing company Y's continued involvement. Additional payments: company Y also pays a 5% royalty to country X on each barrel produced, and additional income taxes on its profits. This arrangement allows both parties to benefit while ensuring the government maintains control over its resources and receives substantial revenue. Why use a PSA? PSAs balance the interests of governments and companies. For governments, PSAs provide access to expertise and capital, allowing them to benefit from resource development without financial risk. The progressive profit-sharing structure maximizes revenue for the government if the project succeeds. For companies gain access to resources, especially in countries with restricted foreign ownership. Although they take on the initial financial risk, they can profit if production scales. Summary. Production sharing agreements are a partnership model where the government grants exploration and production rights to a company in exchange for a share of profits. The company invests in the project and bears the financial risk, while the government retains ownership of resources and benefits through profit sharing, taxes, and royalties. PSAs provide an effective framework for managing oil and gas resources, promoting economic development, and ensuring the host country retains control and benefits.